r/NoSleep. Posted by u/Locidusx. I'm an assistant at a dentist's office, and the rules here are really strange. It was 3 years ago when I saw the ad on the street for a job at Dr. Man's Professional Dentistry, and since then I've never looked back. I live in a small town in Louisiana where the community consists of about 400 rednecks, so you'd imagine their dental care wouldn't be very good. When I walked into the office one cold afternoon for the application, it was pretty empty with only one man in the waiting room, looking through the magazines that there were there. Dr. Mann was at the front desk on the computer looking at something, when I told him that I wanted to apply as assistant. He was an average-height Asian man, and looked up and examined me quickly before saying, "Alright, this job doesn't need too much preparation, so I'll just have to ask a couple questions." I replied and said, "Well, that's fine by me. Should we move to a different room for the interview, or? I don't have too much time, let's discuss it here." It was sudden, but I went along with it. "First question, do you have any experience with dental work?" he asked, and since I had a lesson about dentistry in health class a while ago, I said not really, but I have a common understanding of the teeth and tools. He let out a quiet "alright," and continued with, "Are you alright with disturbing images?" And me being a social media user, I've seen some twisted stuff, so I said yes. He quickly handed me a crinkled piece of paper and said, "Alright, read that while I take care of this patient. And lead the man in the waiting room to another room." After that I read the paper. Employee rules for operating at Dr. Man's Professional Dentistry. Rule 1, always pay attention to the door. If someone comes into the door and the buzzer doesn't sound, pay attention to that individual, and if they exactly copy the movements of another patient, then ask them to follow you out of the back door of the office and stab them in the head using the provided knife, and their body should warp into the ground slowly. The individual shouldn't try to resist, so don't be afraid. Rule 2, if you're closing down the office and mopping the floors and the light to one of the offices is still on, then go to the back and flip the breaker on and off, and if it's still on, then repeat until it off, but do not open the door. Rule 3, if you're in operation with Dr. Mann and the patient's eyes start opening and closing at an unnaturally fast rate, then inject them with the red substance on the shelf without them noticing, and if it continues, inform Dr. Mann and he'll take care of it. Rule 4, if a bald 7 feet 4 inches man enters the office and enters the waiting room, do not share eye contact with him. Lock the front door to prevent other customers from entering, and then leave out the back for 36 seconds exactly, and then come back in and he should be gone. Rule 5, every morning before entering the office you have to ask Dr. Mann what type of day is it? And he says anything other than it's a day for working on teeth, even if it's really close, then excuse yourself to the toilet. The lights should turn off and you should hear a distinct clicking. The copy will try to use echolocation to find you. Hide in one of the closets in one of the rooms and hold the door shut as hard as you can. Wait until you see the lights buzz on again, then exit by the front door and don't come back for that day. As I'm processing this and trying to figure out if it's a joke, I hear the front door open, then close and footsteps go to the waiting room, but the buzzer never goes off. As that thing walked in, I was kind of freaked out. It was all real, none of it was a joke. The individual looked strangely familiar, but I couldn't figure out from where I knew it. After it, a blonde woman entered. It sat down next to the blonde woman that entered before, and it was on the spot with mimicking the woman. Like they blinked at the same time, and I could swear their heartbeats were synchronized. Well, I followed protocol and fumbled for the mentioned knife, which was under the table. I thought it would be a huge shank or something, but it was a small lanky blade which looked like it could fall apart if I tried anything with it. I was scared shitless as I asked the individual, "Hey, could you please come out to the back with me very quick?" It looked at me and said in a text-to-speech like voice, "Okay." I took it out the back and said slowly, "So basically we," and quickly plunged my knife in its forehead. But one problem, it didn't go deep enough. It started letting out inhuman wails as I pushed the knife deeper into its skull, and then it died. I entered again panting, and the woman asked me in a freaked out voice what happened? And I hesitated before saying he was caught stealing a bunch of Novocaine a while back. She looked at me weird before going back to minding her business. After the operation with the man who Dr. Mann was working on before, I told him what happened and how I handled it. He was satisfied with the result, but before I could ask questions he told the woman her appointment is now, and he dragged me along into the operating room. She was getting some regular whitening and Rule 2 wasn't a problem. After that no one came for quite a bit, so I used this time to ask some questions. I first asked him what was that thing that walked in this morning? And he answered me quickly while he was messing around on the computer with a spirit. They mimic a patient for a bit, and if it doesn't stop they possess them. I was dumbfounded and asked if it was a spirit. How did I grab? Don't ask, I don't know, he said. At the time no more questions came to me, so we did a checkup on a little boy before closing. After he left and I was mopping the floors, Rule 2 came in, but not how I expected it. It was around 8 p.m. and in room 3 the light was on, and out of curiosity I walked over to see what was going on. They had those blurry glass doors and through it what I saw was horrifying. There was a man being tortured by a dental drill. That ear-piercing sound of the drill mixed with screaming filled the hall. I was about to open the door before recalling Rule 2, so I went out back and turned the breaker on and off. After that, thankfully, it was gone, and I continued cleaning. But I felt watched, most likely because of what just happened, but still, I felt like I was being watched. When a Rule 5 occurred I fucked up horribly. I entered a bit earlier and almost forgot to ask, "What type of day is it?" And he answered, to my horror, "A day for fixing teeth." It was close, but it was wrong. I excused myself to the toilet and I started hyperventilating. I hoped this wouldn't happen, I really did. As I dropped my coffee and hesitated on which room I should hide and the lights went out. A figure with long arms and legs and glowing eyes came around the corner and our gazes met. At this moment I analyzed my enemy. Its skin was dark gray and it was hunched over slightly. It was really skinny, like its skin hung off of the bone. It started clicking rapidly and it started running toward me. I ran like Usain Bolt to the toilet, where I knew there was a window that I could escape through. It scratched the hell out of the back of my calf and I screamed. I practically threw myself into the toilet and locked the door. It instantly started banging on the door and I scrambled to fit through the tiny window. As I was halfway through the window it broke down the door and cut deep into my calf with its claw. I got out and ran home, with blood dripping onto the sidewalk. I never got an explanation for that, but I don't want to know. Outside of the usual, one thing which was not on the list happened. I came in late one day and the office was packed but Dr. Man wasn't there. It was strangely quiet, but when I looked at the patients I got a mini heart attack. They were all looking me straight in the eyes and smiling ear to ear. I stared for a bit and then ran out back to call Dr. Man, but he didn't answer. I went back in and said, "Do you all have appointments?" in a trembling voice. They continued staring until one man said, "You must stay." And they all said in unison, "You must always stay." Before the lights went out, I heard whispers before the lights turned on and they were gone. Then I realized I came in on the day we were closed and I forgot. I asked Dr. Man about it but he said he would take care of it. Since then a lot has changed. New employees have arrived, new rules have been made, and some accidents have happened. This place feels fake, like a movie set, and I desperately want to leave, but this damned office has a grip on my soul.